Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Fire Department Connections. My name is Cindy Jones with the Knox Company. Today, we are presenting Protect Your Building from Fire Sprinkler System Failure. I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Deputy Fire Chief David Kerr. Chief Kerr currently serves as a fire marshal and deputy chief for Plano Fire Rescue. His experience includes municipal and industrial fire protection. He serves as an adjunct faculty member at the National Fire Academy and is actively involved in code development at the local, state, and national level. He is a member of several national fire service organizations and serves on numerous boards and commissions, including the United States Fire Administration, International Fire Marshals Association, and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Now we'll begin the program.
You've never needed this fire sprinkler before, but what if today you do? What if all that comes out is a weak trickle? What if it doesn't work at all? What if none of your sprinklers work? And what if it's because of this? If debris is blocking your fire department connections, it could affect the water pressure in your sprinklers. Knox heavy-duty FTC caps keep them clear, helping to prevent what if from becoming what happened. Trust Knox to protect what matters when it matters.
Good morning. As you saw in the video just a moment ago, adequate water pressure is what's needed to keep sprinkler systems operating properly. The fire department connection provided on your building's exterior allows the fire department to connect their hoses from the fire engine to the fire department connection, sometimes referred to as a Siamese connection, to, again, maintain that adequate water pressure. We're boosting the pressure that's already in the system. So one of the questions you may have is, well, why do I need this if I have a water supply already to my sprinklers? Well, very good question. You look at the water pressure in your home. It fluctuates. It's not a static system. It's dynamic. It's constantly changing all the time. As more people use water, there's less pressure available. You may have experienced that with low water pressure in a shower, maybe low water pressure in your home faucet. Without adequate water pressure, the fire sprinklers will not operate properly. To maintain those fire sprinklers at the correct pressure, the fire department needs to keep that pressure at the right level. Also, there are two types of fire department connections that are currently available out there. The one in the center is the standard 2.5-inch connection. You see it on a lot of buildings, but nowadays, a lot of modern fire departments are using the one on the left, which is a larger diameter opening between 4 to 6 inches, and it allows us to have one large pipe, one large hose to hook to the sprinkler system, allowing a larger flow of water with less friction loss. So what's the big risk, you might say, about having an unlocked fire department connection? So some of the problems with unlocked or open FDCs and the risk associated with those are such as the following. Foreign material. So this could be anything from a Coke can that we've seen in the center of this display here, to cigarette butts, to rocks, to any kind of trash and debris that gets in there. The problem with this is, one, that it's certainly going to reduce the flow, but if that becomes dislodged, it's going to then put that material into the system, and it's going to go to the smallest choke point and stop, or it's going to go to the sprinkler head or worse, the firefighter's nozzle, allowing them not to get the adequate pressure that they need. For some parts of the country, freezing is a problem. You look at that lower left-hand picture, you can see a rat's nest has been made inside this fire department connection here. The fire department connection is dry up until a certain point. Just above the valve, or just above the connection, you're going to see a check valve just outside the scope of this picture. The check valve allows the building's wet part of the system to stay inside the building away from freezing. However, the pipe going outside the building must remain dry so we don't get a block of ice. The problem we run into here, however, is that those caps are missing, then the air blows up into the system and it then freezes that check valve. Not enough to freeze and break it. If you're familiar with frozen sprinkler pipes, which some of you may have experienced over the years, the problem here is Small pipes in unheated areas will freeze very quickly and break. It takes a long time to freeze and break a fire department connection, but not long to freeze the check valve to where it won't properly open and function correctly. Next thing we're going to look at here is damage and theft. So the center part we can see is the damaged sprinkler system standpipe connection, and the one on the right side, of course, has been obviously broken off. It's backed into, someone broke the thing clean off. But the one on the left is one that there's a slight dent in the top of that coupling to the right there. That small egg shape is enough to cause the coupling to be somewhat oblonged, and therefore the fire hose will not connect to this connection. So that's a real problem there. Theft is a problem. We can see that these caps are missing. The missing caps may be brass, and we know that that is a point that people tend to want to steal these brass caps because they can get money for them in the salvage yard. So we're seeing that's a problem as well. Another issue with open fire department connections is illegal activity. You might say, what kind of illegal thing can we do with a fire department connection? That lower right-hand picture might be a good indicator. There's something in that lower right-hand corner. I can't tell what that is, but it could be a couple of baggies of drugs. Police departments have been reporting this for quite a while now, that these are being used as drug lockers. So I can put a couple of baggies in there, walk away. Someone else comes along, takes the baggies out, puts an envelope in there. I come back, get the envelope. So you can see it's a very convenient way to maybe have a drug drop. The police departments have also reported that they cannot really prosecute very easily someone who is seen putting their hand up in one of these systems, because they could say, well, I just saw something hanging out of there, or it's very difficult to tie them to that actual activity. The last one is one that we're having to deal with more and more on a day-to-day basis, and that is harm to our buildings. So we lock our buildings up. We have bulletproof glass. We have magnetic door locks on our doors. We have security systems as we go through our buildings. But terrorist acts are something that we're always now aware of. So we think our building is totally hardened, but actually there's a 4-inch hole in your building. If you look at this standpipe connection, you can see you have a 4-inch hole in your building. So this is that rat's nest can be built there, so can a pipe bomb be shoved up into that pipe. So someone can do lots of damage to the building and never even enter the building. On the other side of that wall, typically, is going to be your main utility room. That's going to be where all your main building supply is for gas, electric, water, all the things that are needed to function within your building. So what kind of cost are we talking about here if we have an unlocked FDC? Well, the cost can be quite a bit because we have to make sure that there's no debris in there. So if we come along and say, oh, you have an open cap on your system, you need to put a cap back on. If you put the cap back on without cleaning that system out, you've just entombed the trash and debris and things that are already locked up in your system. Back flushing is really the only reliable way to make sure the system is totally clear of any kind of debris. Looking at that lower left-hand picture, you can see that's a yard, what's called a yard fire department connection. It's away from the building, commonly found on high-rises or all-glass buildings or buildings with lots of loading docks, loading terminals. You'll see a remote FDC. In the center now, we see that FDC has a small can or something crushed up inside it there. The right side shows a schematic of what that yard hydrant looks like. So the far right-hand side of that picture, you see the fire department connection. That pipe goes down and it goes underneath the building and then pops up back up inside the building to where that check valve is we talked about earlier. So from the check valve to the left is going to be wet. From the check valve to the right is going to be dry. If you look at back where that fire department connection is outside the building, if those caps are open, it's going to be subject to, again, trash and debris, not only entering, but now dropping all the way to the very bottom of that pipe. There's no way you're going to be able to find that without flushing the system. Flushes can be expensive. They can run anywhere up to $1,500 for a back flush. And then if you're like those nice, pretty brass caps, it's going to cost you about $500 to replace those. So you can see that each time the caps are missing, the system should be backflushed to make sure there's no debris got in there between the time the cap was found missing to the current time. So to avoid costly backflushing of the system and the costly replacement of the caps, you can avoid that cost by having a locking FDC that only the fire department has access to. Protection from theft and damage also is avoided by having a locking FDC cap. Fire department connections, such as the ones you're seeing on the right-hand side by Knox, cover the swivel guard also. This one shows the swivel guard in place. The silver aluminum cap that goes over that female coupling allows not only the brass cap to be protected, but that coupling. It's been reported now that people are taking that cap completely off and then taking up the set screw on the coupling. If that's missing, then there's no way the fire department can supply the sprinkler system. The locking cap protects the FDC from theft and from damage. We talked about those couplings not being egg-shaped or being hit or damaged. And it certainly ensures no debris is going to enter the system. And should the system be needed, that system is going to be in place, ready to go, properly protected to save property and lives. So standpipe outlets, the second piece of our puzzle here today is the standpipe. The standpipe is really just a series of pipes that are connected up inside the building that allows the fire department to pre-position where they're going to cook their hoses up. You're probably most familiar with these in stairwells of high-rise buildings, office buildings, hotels. You've seen these around. So it allows the fire department to rapidly take a small amount of hose up and quickly hook up and fight a fire without having to drag hose up all the stairwells. So in this case, let's look at a case study here where we've got a fire on the 4th floor of a parking garage. So parking garages typically are not sprinklered because they're open air structures, but they do have standpipes for firefighters to manually fight the fire. These systems are dry so they won't freeze. So the lower left-hand corner, we see our fire department connection. So we can hook up there. The fire department then begins to pump to the system. But what we didn't know is last night, kids were out there playing around and either stole the caps, then they turned the valve on, no water came out, so they got bored and ran away. These are not indicating valves. In other words, we can't tell just by looking at them whether that valve's open or closed. So again, no water came out, cap's gone. Fire department goes up to the third floor, hooks up, advances their hose to the 4th floor, and then look where all the water's going. All the water's going to the 2nd and 3rd floor, and the firefighter just getting a trickle out of the nozzle. This is a communication problem because the firefighter is telling the pump operator, I need more water. The fire engine's pumping all the water they can, but it's not going to them. The only solution there is to go down and close all those valves or hand lay hose up that stairwell. This is going to take away precious time needed to fight that fire. So here's the results. The unlocked cap on the left we see is open. We can't tell. There may be some debris in there. And if there's debris in there, it's going to go directly to the firefighter's nozzle. Notice that valve is not indicating. In other words, I can't tell by looking at that valve, is it open or closed? If I had a cap on that, I couldn't tell the difference. Now, the right-hand side shows what happened on that fire we were talking about. Now we have a large number of cars that have been damaged and destroyed in this building. Looking above, we see the concrete has been spalted or the concrete has popped off. If that concrete is popped off then we now have exposed steel, and we now have extreme danger of structural damage to the building. So again, by locking these discharge caps, we're making sure the standpipe discharge outlets are protected. We're making sure that, and again, the same keyway that unlocks the fire department connection also unlocks the standpipe cap. So again, one keyway does it all, one key wrench. So this ensures, again, the available water pressure is there. Again, the outlet threads are not going to be damaged or destroyed, which if those are damaged or destroyed by vandals, we can't hook the hose up to it. So again, this is a very important thing. You can see the firefighters waiting in the stairwell in that picture on the right, and the smoke is certainly getting thicker and blacker coming out of there, indicating no water's been put on that fire. So for some of these things, there are some codes out there for how fire sprinklers are installed and what goes on there. Fire sprinklers are installed in accordance with NFPA 13. That's the design standard. NFPA 25 is the inspection standard. So if you have an existing building and the fire sprinkler company comes in to do the maintenance work on it, they're going to be doing that work based on NFPA 25, the National Fire Protection Association standard. The International Fire Code and NFPA 1, the Fire Inspection Code for NFPA states, allows locking FDC caps. Let's take a look at some of that language. So here we can see on the left-hand side, we see the panel for NFPA number 1, which is their standard for fire inspections, and that is allows the FDC to be locked up in Chapter 13. The authority having jurisdiction, which is the fire department, can require those. That center panel shows the International Fire Code section, and again, it allows a locking connection to be required by fire departments, where the fire department carries this key wrench for the removal. Now the right-hand side looks kind of similar to that center panel, but that right panel shows the International Fire Code section 90511. In 2018 code, it now says the fire department is allowed to require outlet caps to be locked up. And again, very similar language to the center panel where the fire department carries that key wrench. Again, they're authorized to have those links locked up. So you may say, what are the next steps? What should we do next? Well, the next thing you need to do is to go out today and take a walk around your building. Look at that FDC. Make sure that it's clear of any kind of vegetation, that there's no shrubs or anything blocking it. And then take a closer look. Are the caps on there? If the caps are missing, you need to contact the local fire department. Contact that fire department and ask them, are they registered with NOx, and do they allow the locking caps to be used in their jurisdiction? If they're allowed, then you need to back flush that system and order the caps. Again, the local fire sprinkler maintenance company can back flush that system, and then those caps can be installed and you'll be protected from now on. For more information regarding this, you can contact NOx at noxbox.com, or you can contact their friendly customer service department at 1-800-552-5669. Now, Cindy, let's see if there's any comments from the audience out there today.
Okay. Well, thank you. So yes, we will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please submit your questions using the Q&A button. Okay. Okay, now a common question, you mentioned a dry system. What makes a system dry?
So dry systems are used a lot of times. That's a really good question. Dry systems are used where areas are subject to freezing. So it could be an outdoor loading dock. It could be an open air parking garage. It could be a cold storage warehouse. Those types of things are going to have that. Another question that I've been asked in the past on this is, what if my building has a fire sprinkler system in it? Won't the fire sprinklers put out the fire before the fire department gets there? And yes, they're going to hold that fire in check. However, if you've got a building that's multi-story, there's going to be times when a floor of that whole building is going to be turned off for remodeling. So if you have a building, you have to do that. You have to turn that system off then to remodel that one floor. So now I've got the sprinklers on the third floor turned off. A fire on that third floor is going to require a manual firefight from the fire department. So therefore, that standpipe is going to be very important, even in a wet pipe system, that it be maintained open and clear.
Okay, we have a few more questions. The first one here is, why aren't breakaway caps as good as locking caps?
Well, good question. Breakaway caps do protect the system, but only while they're there. Once they're broken off, then debris can enter the system. It doesn't protect it from illegal activity. It certainly doesn't protect it from the the harm to the building talked about from a terrorist act or something like that. So again, the breakaways are just minimal protection. They really don't protect on the long term. Once you back flush the system, put a breakaway on. If it's broken off a week later, you're back to having a vulnerable system.
Now, is there any way to protect the standpipe valve?
The standpipe valve itself, right now those valves are generally placed inside the stairwells, away from any kind of areas where they can be damaged. So typically they're put away from that location. The only thing that we have right now is just the cap to protect the threads from that perspective. But there's some of them inside buildings are put inside cabinets in hallways and that kind of stuff, but nothing from that perspective I'm aware of.
Okay. Is it a quick release, like a half or quarter turn system, or does it require numerous turns?
Very good question. Yeah, it's kind of like your fire hydrant. Your fire hydrant takes 18 turns to open it up. This takes about 4 or 5 twists. So you take that key and insert it into the opening, and you'll turn it about 4 times, maybe 5, and then it just unscrews like a normal cap. So again, it's a threaded cap, so it threads on, and then the key wrench then locks those threads in place. So about 4 to 5 turns, and it opens up very quickly. Good question.
Oh, is the NOx solution a one-time cost, or do I have to buy new FDCs each time the fire department opens the connection?
Very good. NOx makes these things where they're like, extremely sturdy. We're not going to damage that cap. So once we take the cap off, then that cap can be reinstalled after the fire. So let's say you had a small fire in one of your storage rooms or something like that. So a really small fire that occurred. Then once the fire's out, the sprinkler company would replace the sprinkler head. You'd clean up the fire debris, and then the cap could be replaced, again, without any additional cost.
Okay. From a preventative maintenance standpoint, how often should a system be back flushed?
Well, the NFPA codes and standards have a requirement for that, and so you have to follow that standard. One of the things that they're looking at is increasing that flush to possibly not requiring it, but once every 5 to 10 years if the caps are locked on. So again, that's being looked at by NFPA now because of this advanced technology.
Okay, the next question we have is who all is allowed to have the NOx key? And I can answer that one. The key wrench is different than our regular NOx box system, which some people may be familiar with. They're not the same. They don't use the same key. The key wrench used on the FDC products is a universal key wrench that NOx provides to the local fire department. The fire department determines who in their jurisdiction, such as sprinkler contractors, have access to that key. So NOx does not make that determination, the local fire department does.
Very good. That's what I've seen also across the country, is that since it's a universal key, all fire departments have access to it once they sign up and register, which that's free of charge to sign up and register for the system, and then the keys are free to the fire department.
Okay, okay. Are the caps secured to the FDC once removed? I don't.
So there's not a chain to them. If you're asking about that, they're not. So once the cap comes loose, then yes, it's just going to be lying on the ground, and so it can get kicked around and moved around. So there's not any kind of a chain mechanism to hold it on. Once they're put on, they're never removed unless ever again, unless it's going to be used for an emergency operation. So in that case, just like any other cap, if there was we would just take it off and lay it on the ground.
Okay. It looks like we are out of time, so I want to thank Chief Kerr for being with us today. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate you all having the time spent with us this afternoon. Thank you for being participants. Thank you for the wonderful code questions. If you have any additional questions, though, please be sure and send those in even after this is over. You can still contact Knox with any additional questions that we can get back with you on.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your being here. As a reminder, if you have any questions or want additional information, please visit knoxbox.com or contact Knox at 1-800-552-5669. A recorded version of this webinar will be posted on knoxbox.com. As soon as it's available, we'll send you an email with a link to the webinar. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.